Hi all, it's Jennifer Palmer and welcome to the Welly Walk podcast. Thanks for coming and joining me today. I really appreciate it. I've been trying to record this episode for about 4 weeks, which is ridiculous. I've been stymied by a number of things, including the software that I'm trying to use, and I spent about 4 hours yesterday working on editing, and it constantly crashing. I have this new bit of kit. I have a Whoop, and Whoop is not paying me. I'm not advertising Whoop right now, but it's been interesting because it's a sleep tracker and it tracks your stress as well. And it kept warning me, you're in high stress mode. And I felt like I wanted to take the computer and just throw it against the wall. And so I've ended up just scrapping everything. And this isn't the first time this has happened. This has been going on for 4 weeks, where I'll record and then try to go back and edit, and either it's just not coming together, I can't get my thoughts quite right, or the software crashes. So this is going to be a final attempt. We're going to get it done, right? Yeah. And today was also quite a kind of test of my resolve, I have to say. After yesterday being in high stress for 4 hours and feeling like I just wanted to give up on this episode. And then this morning, waking up at 6 and the kids getting up and just the run up to getting them to school, high stress, just trying to juggle getting them fed and watered and dressed and coordinated. And it's a hot day today. It's going to be 23 degrees, which is about as hot as it usually gets here. And so getting the sun cream on, making sure we have the hat. We can't find the hats. Where are the hats? I ordered new hats last week and they haven't arrived yet, even though I paid for overnight delivery. All these things going on, and the kids, he's complaining because his jumper is uncomfortable, and so we have to find a new jumper. It's unending. And I don't want that snack pop, Mummy, because it opens up in the bag. Well, we don't have another snack pop for you. Well, I don't want that one. Etc., etc. Calm. It was a test. And then, of course, we got to school, and both children had forgotten their hats, even though we'd spent all morning talking about hats, getting the hats ready. The hats are by the door. And, of course, ultimately, it comes down to me. Why didn't I check again when they got into the car when we were running 10 minutes late to make sure they had their hats? And then I got to school, and I told the teacher I was going to have to go home and get the hats, and she's like, you tried. I was like, yes. You know what? I did try. And then walk back down the lane, get in the car, go home, get the hats, go back, walk back up the lane. And the great thing was, I was walking. I was outside in the sun, and I could just let my thoughts wander and pull myself together and think about what I was going to say to you today. And the feeling was, this is a test. This is a test of everything that you've learned this last year. All the strategies, all the tools, all the understanding of the neuroscience that you've been accumulating. This is a test. What do you do now when you're in really high stress and you feel, again, like your focus is narrowed and your brain has become a fist? What do you do to put yourself into a good frame of mind again? It's a big challenge, isn't it? Because in those moments of stress, you feel like you can't get out of it. You can't emerge, and you're stubborn about it. You feel like, no, you know what? No, I'm in a bad mood. Everything's going horrible. Life is horrible. The world is against me. Blah. And you lock yourself in. But then walking up the lane and walking down the lane, I just tried to bring my focus back to the present. I tried. Forgive yourself, and walk on. And by the time I got home, the Ocado van had shown up, the delivery man with all the groceries. So again, had to get through all that stuff before I could get to you and get to this microphone. Kept thinking, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? How are you going to fix this? How are you going to put yourself in the right frame of mind? And I used the tools that I had, and I calmed myself down, and I started to clear the way, to drag my brain over to over to safety. Safety, safety, safety. And that's where we left off the last episode, was that I had figured out this idea of abundant thinking versus lack thinking. And abundant thinking is the realm of oxytocin, which is the love and bonding hormone, and dopamine, which is the motivational hormone. Wouldn't we like a bit more of that? And serotonin, the contentment hormone. Oh, I would love a bit of contentment. And when you live in this kind of bubble, when this is your primary residence, then life feels great. Life is blooming all around you, and there's possibilities, and you can see them. You can see all the possibilities everywhere. It's ripe for the picking. It's right there at your fingertips. Now, the other way of thinking is lack thinking, which is where I was yesterday and where I was this morning, which is the realm of cortisol, the stress hormone. And I will reiterate again, cortisol is not a bad thing in small quantities. It is a necessary thing. We have to have it to balance out our brain. And we need it for things like actually when your body's getting you woken up in the morning out of sleep, it needs a cortisol rush to get there. So it's not all bad, but it's when you are in high stress chronically, like I was yesterday, and as I have been for years and years and years, then your immune system, it gets degraded, it gets pulled apart, and that's when you get chronic illness, and you can get cancer, and I got cancer, and I knew it way back when, that little voice in the back of my head when I was stuck literally in lockdown during COVID, taking care of 2 really small children and dealing with taking care of the house and renovating another house and having a job writing and a lot of pressure on me to actually do the thing that I wanted to do for the first time in ages. And there was a voice in the back of my head saying, you're giving yourself cancer. You're going to get cancer from this. The stress was so high, that feeling of being underwater and not being able to get to the top, not even knowing which direction the top is. And I don't want to go back to that place again. I never want to be back in that place again. I want that abundant mindset. I want what she has. I want to be one of those really annoying people. You know the ones that seem just happy-go-lucky. They're smiling. They've got this. They walk slowly and confidently. They don't move too fast. They're just floating. And they always seem to have a good sense of humor. And they're always motivated and they're organized. How do they do that? I want to be that person. That's what I want. And so this was my goal, I realized. At the end of the last episode, I had started The Artist Way, which was fantastic. And The Artist Way was offered to me by my friend Sarah. She also recommended another book to me later on, which was by Martha Beck, which is called The Way of Integrity, which I'll talk about later. But in The Way of Integrity, Martha Beck mentions the word psychopomp. And this has stuck with me, this word. And this is what I'm going to call this episode, Psychopomp. And what is a psychopomp, you may be asking? Yes, well, it is a spiritual guide to the soul. A spiritual guide to the soul. Martha Beck says it is anyone or anything. It could be a person, it could be a mentor, it could be a friend, it could be a book, it could be a cat, which makes you halfway to a Murakami novel, just throw in some spaghetti. It is anyone or anything that turns your attention around and focuses it inwards to your soul, to your psyche. And that's what started to happen to me at this point. I had had my crisis. I had had my breast cancer diagnosis. I had had a mental breakdown, which I now recognize was only a partial mental breakdown. I had stopped myself on the way. Yes, I had hit rock bottom, but I didn't want to look at it too closely, and I didn't allow myself. I was kind of managing my mental health crisis. I was managing it, trying to make it look genteel and under control, which kind of isn't what a mental health crisis is supposed to look like, right? But that's what I was trying to do. And in order to manage my mental health crisis, I had told my husband that the answer was that I needed to be able to change my career potentially. I had gotten a master's degree as a screenwriter, but I hadn't gotten to get my roots in with that. I hadn't gotten to explore it. I haven't gotten to establish any kind of career in that direction because I had put everything on hold when we had children. And I had leaned into Pilates because it was an hourly rate and I could make money day by day. And I had said, give me these 3 months that I need to recover after my mastectomy and my reconstruction. Give me these 3 months and let me try to find my heart again. Let me try to find my heart, which is my job, which is my career. And he was supportive, and I couldn't work in that time period anyway. So I was being really efficient. I was being very effective with my time. I was being very logical. I was being very logical about it. And so while I had to lie in bed and recuperate for 3 months and conserve my energy, I poured myself into master classes. I dabbled in garden design and interior design. And garden design, I decided probably needed to be a passion project because it was pretty intense and it just wasn't quite the thing, I think. And also I didn't know about the business side. It seemed really overwhelming. And then interior design as well, love it. And I feel like I could do it. But again, the business side of it, what is the business side? And would it be any better than teaching Pilates? And Pilates I know, and Pilates I'm very good at, and I've been doing it for 20 years. And I've been teaching for over 10 years. So it felt like I was finally coming into confidence with that. So would I really want to jettison it for something completely unknown? It had to be right. It had to feel right. And then the writing I hadn't gone back to because I was scared of it, because I felt a deep resistance. And I knew the resistance was because I had so much baggage attached to it. And because I knew the feeling of writer's block way too well. And then the artist way had been offered to me. And Sarah is one of my psychopomps. There you go. Number 1 psychopomp on the list is Sarah Davis. So she's inspired me our whole friendship from way back in our college days. But she especially inspired me because a couple years ago, she had a similar kind of mental breakdown, a rock bottom moment. She had a very stressful corporate job. And it got to the point where she just couldn't do it anymore. And she went to her partner and they agreed she was going to quit her very lucrative and secure job. And they were going to sell their house and they were going to buy a Winnebago. And the whole family, 2 kids, cat and a dog, they were all going to bundle into this Winnebago and they were going to set off for a year adventure, traveling around the country, being together, finding themselves again and finding their roots and finding the place where they wanted to put those roots down, which would give them more opportunity for happiness and security and sanity. And when she did this, I just thought, how much courage, how brave to do that, to upend all of this when you have what seems like the perfect situation, security, a high-paying job, living in beautiful Southern California. But the truth was, it was poison. It was a poisoned chalice. And she had knocked it to the ground. And she said no. And she had gone searching for her North Star. And I was just full of admiration. And so when I did stamp my foot and charge into Charlie's study, demanding change, she was top of my mind. I was trying to be brave. I was trying to think, no, you finally have to listen to yourself, because for years and years and years, you've had this voice on repeat, just circulating through your head, this angry voice saying, no, this has to stop. Things have to stop. Things have to change. And have I changed anything? Have I made any changes? Have I even expressed this voice out loud? No, I have not. So, when the artist way was handed to me, I took it. I took it because Sarah is my psychopomp, and she was pointing me in a direction. And what I realized at that moment, too, is that I was in free fall, because I had gotten to the end of the 3 months that I had told myself would answer everything. I would find my new path, my new career, and I would double down on it, and it would be the answer, God damn it. But the truth was, I had gotten to the end of 3 months and I hadn't found that answer. I was scared of the writing, and I felt lost and perplexed again. No sense of purpose, and life was threatening to go right back to where it had been. That stress was imminent. It was incoming. And oh my God, I was like at bat. I wanted to just hit that stress and home run, get it out of the park. But how could I do that? How could I keep it away? And so Sarah's gift of Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way was a psychopomp pointing me in the direction of another psychopomp. And there she was, Julia Cameron, psychopomp number 2 on the list. And she was offering me a guide, a 12-week excursion through my mind, through my psyche, right? They were both pointing me. They were saying, no, you're looking the wrong direction. You're looking outwards. You're looking at some kind of that red herring that I said before. Or is it a white rabbit? It was the wrong thing. I needed to turn my attention around and focus it inwards. And Julia Cameron helped me to realize what I needed was to feel safe. And I needed to protect my health. This is what I was terrified of as well. I was denying myself the fact that I was terrified because I had had this cancer diagnosis. I really thought there could be cancer anywhere throughout my whole body. Like, where is the cancer that they're not finding? Because I have been treating myself appallingly, and the chickens are coming home to roost, and one of them was in my boob. So where are the other chickens? And so this was preying on me, this feeling. And what could I do? Julia Cameron was giving me some tools. She was giving me tools, 12 weeks of gentle exercises. And it was at this time, of course, that I found Dr. Tara Swart and her book, The Source. And of course, she was offering manifestation, this kind of, mystical idea that you could manifest the life that you want. And typically, people think of manifestation, wishy-washy granola, as you just think it, you hope it, you wish it, and it's just going to fall in your lap. But Dr. Tara Swart was saying, you can manifest the life you want, but you have to action it. It's a case of priming your brain for abundance and priming your subconscious to notice the opportunities around you and harnessing those opportunities and following them. And if you did this, you can manifest the life you want. So, yes, please, I'll have what she's having. And it was around the same time that Charlie and I had booked flights to go for a mini break to Sardinia, to the Mediterranean without any children. And it was our 10-year wedding anniversary. And it had been 10 years, and the only trip that we had taken together in that time period of this sort, where you go off on a plane and you lie in sun loungers and you have 3 uninterrupted days, was to go visit my parents and my family way back when, 9 years ago, before we had Elias. That was the last time we had jetted off anywhere together. So this was very exciting. But it was also terrifying because it meant 3 days sitting across from each other and having to talk. Sitting at meals, 3 meals a day, and filling that space and time. And I'm going to be honest, I was terrified because I felt like I couldn't talk to him about the stuff that I was going through or feeling. Just like I couldn't talk to him back when I had stormed into his office and yelled, "Things have to change." And he said, "Do you want to talk about it?" And I was like, "No." And I ran away. It was the same thing. This whole time I had squirreled myself away upstairs while he was stressed downstairs, dealing with his high stress job and having the extra care of the kids on top of that while I was upstairs lazing around, recovering and watching master classes on gardening and interior design. He'd been stressing downstairs and I was very aware of this. I felt hugely guilty. And I felt also like if I exposed myself and what I'd been doing, he was going to find holes. He was going to find holes and he was going to tell me I'm being irresponsible and that I need to stop doing all this stuff, all this kind of self-indulgence, and I need to just get back to work and get back to reality and pull my big girl pants on and take care of the duties that I have as a mother. And of course, this isn't probably what he would say, but this is what my gremlins were telling me. "Oh, do you remember the gremlins?" Yes, I remember the gremlins. My old pals, they're still there. They're still there. But especially at this point, they were very much there. And both Julie Cameron and Dr. Tara talk about safety. And in this process of finding yourself, of coming back to yourself, it's very important to protect the process and protect yourself from any negativity. And so I had decided I couldn't talk to him about this because I was afraid. I was afraid, first of all, of rocking the boat and that he would get stressed by the fact that I was having a mental health crisis. So again, I was trying to be logical and controlled about this mental health crisis, and it was dragging on because I wasn't allowing it to just let rip. And I didn't want to hurt his feelings. There was so much in my brain whirling around. There was a lot of shame, but there was also a lot of blame. And I felt like I blamed him for not being able to talk to him. But I also knew in my heart that that was not fair and that it was not his fault. And this was something that I've been doing for a very long time. That I have bottled myself up and I have not been able to express my feelings. And this has been me since I was a wee little girl, but particularly since high school. So anyway, in this spirit, this is how I went off to Sardinia, thinking at once, I really want to tell him everything and I really want him to be on my side and I want support and I want this to be a team effort. And at the same time, no, you cannot expose yourself. You cannot, because he's going to come down like a ton of bricks and you're going to be embarrassed and you can't explain yourself and you can't put your words together and you're just going to flounder in front of him like a dead fish on the beach, like a dying fish, not quite dead, dying fish. But anyway, and the other thing I was thinking was I wanted to protect him and I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to have the holiday that he needed. We both needed a holiday. What a year we had had. And Charlie had really stepped up and he worked so hard through all this, and emotionally he was not dealing with any of it. He is very British and he was not processing anything. I can tell you that. So I needed safety and security. He needed safety and security. And off we go to Sardinia. The day arrives. We're supposed to be going off to Sardinia. And of course, number one thing happens. Charlie wakes up and he's got a migraine. He's got a migraine. He had been having migraines about every 2 to 4 days recently. And he had been suffering with these migraines for about 5 years. And the doctors haven't been able to really help him. They keep on putting him on different medications. And so he's on a slew of medications for this. He takes them and we bundle him into the car, and I'm driving to the airport. And of course, he gets car sick on the way, and it's just, oh, he looks in pain. We get to the airport and his medication is starting to kick in, luckily. And we get on the plane, and of course, the plane is filled with lads, going off on a stag do to Sardinia. How much fun for them. And they were all really drunk. And it was about 12 noon, and Charlie's trying to get over a migraine. And we're halfway to Sardinia. We're up in the air. And what should happen? My face breaks out in hives. Just those cheery, lovely hives, just like they had done earlier in the summer, which the dermatologist had told me it was stress related. Well, here you go, stress, and my face breaks out into hives, pustules, itchy red pustules across the bridge of my nose, around my lips, on my chin, on my forehead, weird places. And I feel extremely embarrassed, and just like, of course, the one time I'm going to be in the sun wanting to lie in a sun lounger with sun cream, my face is in hives. And I brought a new bikini, and I got some nice summer dresses that I'm going to try on, and my face is going to be quite the show. So we arrive in Sardinia like this. What a pair. And we get to the resort, and of course, they bring us to our room, and our room is facing onto the back of the kitchens and all the industrial fans. Isn't that lovely? And that night we couldn't sleep for the sound of fans and the air conditioner being too cold or too hot, horrible night's sleep. And Charlie is still trying to get over his migraine. And I did something really stupid. I put acne cream on my face because I was so frustrated and I just wanted to solve the situation. And then, of course, my face just burned all night. And I woke up and the whole thing was puffed up and red, and I looked like a blowfish. So that was great. And I was in despair over this. And Charlie was like, no, it doesn't look too bad. You liar. And with that spirit, we went to our first breakfast, sitting across from each other. But it was on a terrace looking out over the crystal blue Mediterranean Sea. And we were on this beautiful island, volcanic island, surrounded with cypress and myrtle and bougainvillea spilling over balconies and red tile roofs. And it was sunny and it was hot, and it was heaven, and it was just what we needed. And we sat and we went through our buffet breakfast, and we went back for seconds and thirds. And we just sat there and we were quiet and looked out and relaxed as we drank our coffee. And this is how the trip went. I had a book. He had a book. We had sun loungers. We went to this beautiful beach one day. Just up the coast. It was so idyllic. I'll put a picture on my Instagram so you can see it. It was so beautiful. And I went into the sea. I love the sea. I come from the sea, and it's my home. And I went into the sea, and I let the sea bathe my hive pustule face. And it stung, but it felt so good. And I could feel the seawater calming my face. And I lay on the sun lounger, and I got out my book. And here enters another psychopomp. This psychopomp is the book The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. And a bunch of friends had recommended this book as a good beach read. And the truth be told, I hadn't read a book, a novel, in at least 5 years. I think I had read one novel in about 8 years. That's pretty sad. And the truth be told, I'm not a great reader, and I was never a great reader. And the truth be told, it's because I was stigmatized from about the age of 8 about my ability to read. Isn't it always the way? I was put into the remedial reading class when I was 8 years old. And I remember a child, when we were at a book fair, and I was picking out a book, and she was like, it was probably Sweet Valley High or Babysitter's Club or something like that. And I was picking it out because all the other girls were picking out the similar books. And she just said, you can't read that. You're in caravans. We're in flights. Those were the reading groups. And I had this stubbornness in me. And I just said, yes, I can. And I went up to the teacher and I said, excuse me, can I read this book? And she was like, of course you can read that book. And I just looked back at her and I was like, I'm buying this book. I didn't read that book. I never read it. I got it and I didn't read it. But there you go. I am a slow reader, but I do love good fiction, but I'm very snobby about it. And it has to be a book that really captures me and I like. And that can be really hard to find. So while I say I'm not a great reader of quantity, I am a reader of quality. I love me some good fiction if it's high quality fiction, highbrow. Anyway, I had thought I'm just going to read a book and I'm going to enjoy myself. And I opened this book and I started to read it and I didn't put it down. I read it in 3 days. It's 400 pages, something like that. And the amazing thing about this book was, first of all, it gave me this escape. It gave me safety and security on this trip in this beautiful place. And it took me into another world and it let my mind wander and cascade and be enveloped in someone else's life. And it's a love story. And it also takes place in a lot of the places I've lived. So that was fantastic because it just drew me back to memories of the past and I could feel the places. And also part of that is because she described them so well. Her style of writing is so cinematic. And as I was reading it, it struck me. This is how I would write a book. And then the thought came to me, my friends Amber and Jane had volunteered to take both of our kids for 2 nights each. This is how we were able to come on this trip. So thank you, Amber and Jane, so much. And Amber had said a long time ago when I had complained about my writing and not getting back and that I really wanted to get back and rewrite my screenplay, but I just didn't feel like I could do it. And she was like, well, why didn't you try writing it as a novel? And I was like, no, I'm not a novelist. I'm a screenwriter. They're not the same thing. 2 completely different things. But now reading this book, The Paper Palace, I just thought I should write it as a novel. I think I'm a novelist. I don't think I am a screenwriter. Maybe this is the problem. And I was reading The Artist's Way at the time as well. And she says, just go to the page. She says, just do it. Just arrive, fill in the form, be there, and be led. You provide the quantity and the universe provides the quality. She also says, speed kills the censor. She was offering me tools, offering me ways to get around writer's block if it should happen, if it should even happen. But I felt with The Artist's Way that maybe if I just arrived, now that I had this new strength and this new guidance with my psychopomps, that who knows what would happen. I felt unblocked. I felt the resistance to writing clear, like a fog. And there was brilliant sun, and I was in this beautiful place, and the possibilities were endless. And so we came back from Sardinia, and Charlie and I hadn't talked. We had enjoyed being with each other, being close to each other, sitting in proximity, lying next to each other, cuddling, finding our safety, and being in this beautiful healing kind of tranquility. And we had taken that, and now we were back to life as it was. And kids were back at school, and I had this new prospect. I was going to write a novel. What the hell? I'm not a novelist, but I'm going to do this. I'm just going to see what happens. I'm just going to flirt with it. And now the problem arises. How the hell are you going to do that when you don't have any time? How do you have a part-time job as a Pilates teacher running a studio and basically full-time job taking care of kids and doing all the house stuff and being the house cook and the cleaner and all this stuff? How do you do all this and also write a novel? Yeah, it's a good question. And what happened at this point, though, was, again, the universe offered me something, offered me a golden apple in the form of The Artist's Way, Media Deprivation Week. Yes, I think this was week 4 or week 5. And this is one that anyone who's done The Artist's Way will shudder at the thought. Media Deprivation Week. I came back from Sardinia right into the throes of Media Deprivation Week. And what is Media Deprivation Week? Well, the rules are quite simple. You are not to listen or read, consume any media. And that is books. So thank God I had finished The Paper Palace. I wasn't to read any books now, nothing for pleasure. You could do stuff for your job. That was fine, but nothing outside of that. No reading the news, no reading social media posts, no scrolling the internet, no podcasts, no Audible, no news. No news, no news, no news. Media deprivation. And it was amazing. This is probably the single most powerful thing that I've done this last year, Media Deprivation Week. First of all, I will tell you, if you do this, and I am hereby challenging you to this, try for a week to not have any media, deprive yourself of all the things. You are allowed to have music, but I kind of tried to not put on music and see what would happen. But if you really can't handle it, you can put on some music. And the first thing that you'll notice, or that I noticed, was how much I reached for my phone. How much I'd reach for my phone just without thinking about it, constantly reaching just to check it. Why am I checking it? And so I started putting it into another room because I couldn't handle it. The pull of it, the constant subconscious, just checking it constantly, and going to reach to put on a podcast, to put on an Audible, to fill the space. Anytime that I wasn't concentrating on something, like I wasn't teaching Pilates or I wasn't doing something with the children, I was constantly reaching for my phone, trying to put on something or trying to search for something. I realized how much I aimlessly will go, oh, I need to look up this thing. I stopped doing that as well. I was like, the phone cannot be with me. I need to go back to old-fashioned time. I need to go back to how it was before we had phones. Remember that? What was that, like 2008? Remember what life was like? It was already pretty hard and crazy. And then we added the phone to it and it got crazier. Coincidence? And so that was one thing that I noticed. So I started putting the phone into another room. And I would occasionally check it throughout the day, but I very quickly realized how much of a pull it has on me and how much stress it's causing me. Not just, there's the sheer stress of using it all the time to organize your life and to do all the household shopping and the endless chats on WhatsApp, the messaging on all the other platforms as well. So you're checking all these different platforms, your email. How many emails do I have? I have 4 emails. Checking all the emails, and I've got about 10,000 unread emails. How am I going to start to deal with that? In the first place, I don't. I just ignore it and I just carry on and I ignore it. So that was the first thing. The second thing was how I realized that exactly I fill the space. Whenever I'm driving someplace or I'm doing dishes or I'm doing laundry, I frantically get my phone. I'm like, oh no, yeah, I need to put on a podcast. I need to put on the news. I need to put on an Audible. I cannot be alone with my thoughts for even a second. I need something stimulating, something coming into my brain. And so that was the second thing I realized, how little space I give myself for my own thoughts. I just realized how reliant I was on filling the space with media. And what I realized was that if I didn't do that, I was terrified. I just thought, how am I going to manage this time without something? But extremely quickly, within seconds, my brain was peeking through saying, hey, oh, there you are. I've got something to tell you. Or just meandering. My thoughts would go off on some other tangent, floating around and coming back with all these brilliant little ideas, memories, just twinkling around. And it was delightful. Again, it was like old-fashioned time. It was like when you were a kid and you were bored and you would lie on the grass and play with a dandelion and look at the sky and listen to the birds and Just feel that feeling of the cold grass on your skin and how it's a bit prickly and how it starts to hurt at some point. And it was amazing. And I felt my stress levels plummet. And all of a sudden, life was a little bit more manageable. I could get my head around things. I could see the bigger picture. When the kids came home, I wasn't stressed and I was happy to see them. I was happy for them to fill my space and to bring me their joy or their complaints or their struggles or their crazy. I was happy to have it. And this was such a gift. It almost makes me want to cry because for so many years I had been so stressed by them. And I had felt beleaguered and like I was pitted against them, pitted against their energy and their constant pull of my attention. And then my guilt at feeling this way, because it's such a short time period with these little people who are such little gifts and so beautiful. And here I am annoyed. How horrible to feel annoyed all the time with your kids. And media deprivation, man, really seriously do it. It also made me realize how much processing I needed to do, how much brain space I needed for my thoughts to just have the time to sink, to meander, to process. And so when it got to the end of media deprivation week, I didn't stop. I was terrified of going back, I have to say, but I did allow myself to go back. But I thought, I'm going to be controlled with this and I'm not going to let it get out of hand again. And I'm going to make sure that I have this time throughout the day where I can let my thoughts flow. And so I often will go to pick up the kids or drive someplace, and my first instinct is to not put anything on, to not listen to something. And I find driving one of the most fruitful, fulfilling times when I have nothing on and I'm just driving. Same with when I'm going for a walk and you're in the woods and you're listening to the birds and you feel yourself all of a sudden becoming part of this mesh of the universe, and you're there and you're connected somehow hyperly to everything. And that's where I started to feel this spirituality, a connection, a feeling that I wasn't this distant planet. I wasn't this island floating in a mire of stress. I was connecting finally. I was breathing again, and I was open. I was open to possibilities. I was open to the world. Things were starting to work. And the thing that was working was, first of all, I had turned my attention inwards. I was doing the morning pages. I was writing every day for 3 pages, stream of consciousness. And Dr. Tara Swart, very early on in her book, says it's a must to journal. And this is because one of the first things that you have to do in order to manifest the life you want, in order to manifest change, is that you have to become aware. You have to become self-aware. And we might think, oh, I'm self-aware, I know what I'm doing, but we don't. We put on these blinders and we march forward and we fill our space with tons of media and input, and we search for quick fixes and quick answers, right? How am I going to change my life? I'm going to change my life by changing my job. I'm going to change my life by getting the car. It's the car. Gosh, if I only had this other car, life would be so much better and I wouldn't have so much anguish. If I just changed my clothes, if I dressed better, I'd have more confidence. But the truth is, all of that is surface, right? And we know that. We know it's surface, but for some reason, we can't look past it. We can't actually look past it because it's hard and it's scary to turn the focus back on ourselves and look at the gremlins on your back, staring back at you with those big eyes and those cute little Cockney accents and a little bit of drool coming out of the side of their mouth. You don't want to look at them. They're scary. And they're there and they're hard to get rid of. But the truth is, that's what we have to do. And the first tool to do this is awareness. And Dr. Tara Swart says, all you have to do is be aware. Don't do anything else. Don't act upon it. Don't try to fix yourself. Just start to become aware. Journal your thoughts. And one of the next psychopomps that I came across, which I'm going to talk about in the next episode, Dr. K says a similar thing. He talks about why journaling is so powerful and so helpful. And he said that the reason is it actually slows you down because it's a different mechanism in the brain from thought. When you're having all these thoughts swirling in your head, you can't capture them. Someone said, and I don't remember who, maybe it was Dr. Tara, that you have 15 seconds to grab onto an idea before it's gone. And isn't that true? You hear something, you're like, oh, that's so interesting. And you're like, wait, what did they say again? It's that kind of feeling, right? So you have all these thoughts that are preying on you, that are priming your brain, that are subconsciously you're dwelling on them. But when you go to write them down, you have to think about them and you have to slow your thought process down to write it, right? And it's the same kind of thought process that we use when we're learning and we're studying and we're revising. It's why I always find that if I really want to learn something, I have to write it down. And I've always wondered why that is. Why does the act of writing something down cement it for me? And it's because you're pulling your attention. You are saying to your brain, this is important. Pay attention to this thing. Dr. K also said that when you're journaling, you're using your senses, right? You're using touch, you're connecting to the paper. And when you use your senses while you're learning is much more effective, which I thought was so interesting, especially with kids and how actually doing an activity with kids, they'll learn things much better than if you're just trying to, drill them with facts. And it's the same with adults. It's the same with everyone. So just journaling, writing things down is an extremely powerful tool to start to listen to yourself, to start to understand. And as I said before in the last episode, it's as helpful for you to notice what you're not writing down as what you're writing down. And that comes back to the fact that when I was writing my morning pages, one of the things that came up constantly was about Charlie and about the fact that I can't talk to him. And why can't I talk to him? And this was something I needed to figure out. And it wasn't just him that I couldn't talk to. I had never been able to talk to my parents. I'd never been able to talk to any of my partners before Charlie. I'd always put myself in the corner. No one puts baby in the corner. Well, Jenny puts baby in the corner. I was always putting myself in the corner. And maybe that's why I liked being alone for so long. Maybe that's why I didn't have many partners. I spent 7 years between when I broke up with Charlie in our 20s and when we got back together. I didn't have a partner in that time period. And perhaps that's because I needed that autonomy. I needed to only be answerable to myself because I didn't know how to be answerable to somebody else. And it's interesting to me because when I started doing the Artist Way, I would come to our Zoom meetings and I would be shaking. It was like I was in shock. I would feel that really cold feeling where you feel like you can't get warm and your teeth are chattering. And I was plenty warm. I had multiple layers of merino wool and socks and a hot mug of tea, but I couldn't control myself. I was just shaking. And I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to pour out. I was so eager to express myself and be part of the conversation. And I was scared that I was dominating a lot of the time. I would hold myself back because I'm like, you're talking much more than other people. Like, hold yourself back. Don't be too much. But I wanted so badly to speak out. And at that time, it reminded me of when I was in high school. And my sister and I both had eating disorders. And my parents, I mean, I don't really know. I wasn't privy to everything that they were talking about or thinking about, but it seemed that not much was being done. And I think they were probably very overwhelmed and didn't know what to do. And, back in the 90s, there wasn't that much, especially in rural Maine, much support for this kind of thing. But it was suggested that we go to family therapy. And so we went one day, which was scary and weird. And what was this thing? And we got into the car and we drove to the next town over, the big city. It wasn't. It's a tiny place, but it felt like a city to me. And we went into this office and we sat in a circle with this therapist. And I don't know how the conversation went, but very quickly he was telling us about like family dynamics and, kind of people taking on roles like the peacekeeper, the comedian, or, the rebel. And he opened the floor to us. Does anyone want to speak? And I very quickly just opened up and it was like vomit coming out of my mouth. I just, blah, all this feeling, all this emotion, I had so much to say. And I could feel the room. And my dad was just irate. And he stood up and he said something along the lines of, "You're trying to make us look like a bad family," to the therapist. "And I'm not going to take it. Come on, we're going." And he made us all leave. We all stood up and I was just like, but. And we left and we never went back. And that door closed. And I went back to being in a family that was all scared, tight-lipped. Just deal with your own stuff. Deal with it. It'll come out someday in the wash. But it obviously didn't. Because here I was in the artist's way, just that same feeling of just wanting to be like, oh, all of it, like get it out of me, get it out, pull it out of my throat. Like one of those magicians with that really long line of handkerchiefs that they keep pulling out of their mouth. And the other thing that I realized here was that, especially during media deprivation and when I would go out into the woods, the thing that was happening was that I was being present. I was starting to become present instead of trying to distract myself. And all of these psychopomps, Julia Cameron, Dr. Tara, Dr. K, who again I haven't gotten into, but I'll talk about him more in the next episode. They all talk about an inner child or this inner voice that you need to start listening to, right? You need to turn your awareness back around and you need to listen to this voice inside of you. You need to start paying attention to it. And Julia Cameron talks about the inner voice as this kind of petulant child that needs attention, that needs love and care, and has tantrums. And Dr. K talks about the traumatized inner child and how if we have trauma in our life, if we have anything that we need to deal with, the tendency is we will bury it and we will stuff it away someplace and we will think, there, it's done. I've taken care of it. And it will go dormant. And then throughout our life, there are things that will trigger it to emerge. And that's like that petulant child, that child having the little tantrum, that child that needs to be taken care of, but you haven't taken care of that child. And he says basically you cannot change, you cannot move forward until you have dealt with that child, that traumatized little child. And Dr. Tara talks about balancing your emotions and your instinct, your gut instinct, and your logical brain, and balancing the three things out and listening. And if you have something that's going on in your life and you want an answer to it, listening to your head, putting your hand on your head and listening, and what's the answer there? Putting your hand on your heart, and what's the answer there? And putting your hand on your gut, and what's the answer there? And if those three things align, then you've got your answer. If one of them's off, then you're not listening. Then something else is going on, right? And the other thing that I started to figure out here was that doing the media deprivation, taking all of this stimulus out of my life that's distracting me, that's keeping me from listening to my inner voice, keeping me from listening to that inner child, that's me coming back to presence. It's making me present in the moment. And when I'm going for a walk in the woods and I'm present, that's when I can connect to the world around me and I can connect to everyone. And it has this magical ability to just kind of melt your problems away in that moment. And Dr. K talks about this at some point in the podcast that I listened to. So it was an interview on Diary of a CEO with Dr. K. So Stephen Bartlett interviewing Dr. K, who is a psychotherapist, psychiatrist out of Harvard. And he has a background. He dropped out of school. He was a gamer and depressed, and he dropped out of college. And he ended up going to India to try to find himself. And he studied to become a monk. And then at some point, he figured out that wasn't what he should be doing. And he had gotten as far as he needed with that. And he came back and he went back to school. He went back to medical school and he became a psychiatrist. And he said that science shows us, neuroscience shows us this, that being present has this immense power. And yoga teaches us this as well, that being present has this immense power where just being present, just bringing your attention to the moment at hand, magically melts your troubles away. It gives you perspective. And that's what I started to feel at this time, just starting to become aware, just starting to journal my thoughts and slow myself down and forcing myself to be present, taking out the extra stimulus, making sure that I had time in my day for solitude was melting my problems away. All of a sudden, things didn't seem as scary. Things didn't seem as stressful because I was present and I could deal with things in the moment. I wasn't sitting ruminating. I wasn't giving myself tons of shame and blame thinking about the past, and I wasn't agonizing over the future and the fact that I was probably going to fail at anything I do. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just being present. And when you're present in the moment, it has this magical ability to just melt your problems away. Just try it. Just try and notice. So I want to do a little exercise here to kind of end this episode. And it is about lack thinking, and it's about abundant thinking, and it's also about presence. And I'm not sure where I got this exercise. I know that bits of it I feel like I got from Dr. Tara, and other bits maybe I got from The Artist's Way, but I've kind of made it my own little exercise. So I want you to think. I want you to bring your attention to yourself, and I want you to remember a time period in your life, or even just pretend, make up a time period, make up this feeling. I want you to find a time period when you felt really stressed and you felt really up against it, frantic, things were going badly, and it was palpable, the feeling of it. And if you've had real trauma in your life, don't go back to the worst bits, just go back to the parts that are accessible and you can bear. But I want you to feel it. I want you to think about this time period, what was going on, and now just bring your attention to your body and your mind, and what are the emotions? Can you name them, what the emotions were? Antagonism, anxiety, aggression, blame, shame, annoyance, feeling peeved all the time, the end of your rope, anger. So many words. And now you've named the emotions. You know the names for these emotions. Even that is a skill unto itself. Some people can't even do that. And now, how do these emotions feel in your body? How do they sit with you? Can you feel how they're affecting you? It can feel like a fist around your heart, like your jaw is clenched, like your eyebrows are tense. It feels like your stomach is in knots and you feel like you're going to be sick. We recognize these feelings, right? These are the feelings of stress. These are stress. This is stress, cortisol, chemical, hormone affecting you physically. It is one and the same. These physical feelings are physical because there's a physical chemical affecting you. And we name the emotions that we sense when we're in this state. And now erase that. Erase it all. Yes, thank God. Erase it. Erase it. Imagine this is you have a whiteboard and you're erasing it. And now I want you to think about an opposite time, a time when you're feeling amazing, when you feel blissed out, when you're in love, think about a time when you were in love. Maybe it's when you just had a baby and you're bonding with a baby. Maybe it's when you fell in love with somebody. Maybe it's when you felt connected to a parent or a caregiver or someone who gave you love. Imagine this time. And can you name the emotions that you're sensing? Bliss, love, happiness, anticipation, contentment, all these gorgeous feelings. Try to name them. Excitement, joy. And now, how are these feelings affecting you in your body? Where do you feel them? You might feel like you've got a little skip in your step, like you're 10 feet tall, like your eyebrows are light and lifted and your eyes are sparkling. You've got a little cheeky grin, right? These are the feelings of oxytocin. This is love. This is your love and bonding hormone. And this is the opposite side of the spectrum to cortisol. They're on opposite ends. And the thing is, they can't really exist at the same time. So as you imagine it's a seesaw, as you get more cortisol, you get less oxytocin, right? Until you are just in the grips of cortisol, in the grips of stress. And as you start to get more oxytocin, you get less cortisol, less stress. So feel that lifting and floating away. And all of a sudden you have this bundle of joy, of golden light, of harmony with the universe, this love, right? And it's what all the books and all the songs are written about. We all want love, love, love. It's the answer, right? And it is, apparently, and I will talk about this in another episode, the neuroscience, the chemicals, these chemicals, this is a big driver. Oxytocin. And the other thing I learned from Dr. Tara was about risk aversion. And risk aversion is some of the most powerful circuitry in our brains. And it basically is us not wanting to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So our brains are wired 2 times as strongly to notice danger and novelty that might be something scary. Fear, anything fearful, we're weighted 2 times as heavily to latch onto that, as opposed to positive things, as opposed to something lovely and happy and good news, because that's not as dangerous. We're not going to get eaten by good news. We might get eaten by bad news. So this is risk aversion, and it's very powerful. So we have to just know that we are susceptible to listening to the news and getting addicted to it, because our brain wants to know everything bad that could be out there that could possibly affect us. We need to have balance with this. We need to be able to be like, all right, is this something that I can control? Maybe I shouldn't be listening to it if it's just making me stressed. If I can't control this, maybe I shouldn't listen to it. I think about my dad, who's just addicted to watching CNN, just constantly just watching CNN, and you can just see him just tied up in knots. And okay, now erase all of this. We've thought about cortisol and you felt it. And we've thought about oxytocin, love, bonding, and you felt it. Now you're erasing it all. And I want you to just bring your attention to the room. Bring your attention to where you are, or the car, or wherever you are. Bring your attention to where you are. You are present. And now, can you feel the space around you? Is it big? Is it small? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is there a breeze? What do you hear? Do you hear birds? Do you hear that annoying sound of some appliance somewhere? Do you hear someone arriving outside? Do you hear someone mowing a lawn? Just be present. Just notice. And what does this feel like? It feels quite comfortable to me. You just pay attention to the present. Bring your attention to it. Focus on it. And this is that magical thing that Dr. K talks about. And the science is with this. And the yoga is with this as well. We've got science and we've got magic. And there's something about the present that melts your worries away and also makes you better able to just handle whatever is going on. You can handle it in the present. And I felt this way when I was in the midst of the whole cancer journey thing. The kind of practicality of the cancer I could totally handle. Like the fact that I had cancer, it was like, all right, so what are we going to do about it? Like, I'm going to be practical at every point of the way. And even I think, even if they had said I needed chemo, I would have been like, okay, so what's the first step? How are we going to do this? How are we going to get through this? And at that time, this is how it felt for me. It felt like I can do this. This is practical. I put one foot in front of the other. And don't ruminate about the future and don't worry about the past. I'm just in the present and I'm making the best of this moment, right? But then when I would be with my thoughts and my subconscious thoughts would come up and I'd be thinking about my life and my ambitions, that's when I would get stressed. That's when I would get angry. And that's when I get pulled into this lack thinking, this cortisol, right? And lack thinking is the realm of rumination, is the realm of the inner critical voice. That's cortisol. That's lack thinking. Oxytocin is the realm of abundance. That's the love and bonding hormone. There's your abundant thinking. When you're in this love bubble, then life is full of possibilities. Like I said, life is great. And you're not thinking about what you don't have. You are appreciating and loving what you do have. And this is when I started to learn about affirmations. And in The Artist's Way, she's very helpful in giving you lists of affirmations that you can play with. Because at first I'm like, I don't know, what is the science of affirmations? What is the protocol behind this? So she gives you these affirmations, which are basically positive statements. Positive is the key thing. It is positive as opposed to a negative. And Dr. Tara Swart talks about affirmations. And she talks about, like if someone is in lack thinking, they might have sayings in the back of their head, like out of the frying pan into the fire, or better the devil you know. Those are negative, right? You are assuming life is not good and it's just getting worse. Do you feel that? That's fear. As opposed to someone thinking abundantly and thinking, I am loved. I am loved. There's a very simple one that I learned a long time ago, actually. And Julia Cameron says that when you first start learning affirmations, it will feel a bit corny, right? Because your brain doesn't want to believe it because it just wants to believe kind of the negative and it wants to be skeptical. But just remember, you are priming your brain for one thing or the other. So you are either going to prime your brain for cortisol and stress and lack thinking by thinking, better the devil you know, out of the frying pan into the fire, or you're going to prime your brain for abundance and oxytocin by thinking, I am loved. Or I like even the version, I am love. I think I got that from Martha Beck. I am love. That just fills me with this universal kind of connection. Like, I am love. I am part of this big thing, this planet that's filled with love. And doesn't that feel amazing? Another one that I like is I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. That makes you stop having to be perfect, having to be as good as someone else. It stops comparing, you stop comparing yourself to other people. I am enough. Or what I like to do with this podcast is, it will be good enough. It will be good enough, pulling me away from my perfectionism. Another one that I really like is, you have no power over me. Do you recognize that? Do you recognize that? That might be from one of our favorite movies, Labyrinth. There we are again. Jennifer Connelly at the end, facing the Goblin King finally. They've gone through that MC Escher type maze, and she's trying to get to her little baby brother, Toby, and he's crawling away. And she just looks at the Goblin King, and he's saying, like, you're never going to win. And she's just like, you have no power over me. And the whole world just shatters in that instant and falls to the ground in these shards of glass. It is all a mirage. And David Bowie, the Goblin King, turns into a white downy barn owl and flies away. And she gets Toby back. She gets her brother and she goes home. And so that's what I think about a lot. When I'm thinking about my goblins on my back, I turn around and I look at them, and just looking at them has the power of being present. Dr. K says this too. If you have a bad habit you don't like, if you've got a negative voice, just paying attention to it, every time you catch it, you chip away at it. And then if you add an affirmation to it, if that negative voice is saying you don't like, you just say right back to it, I am love. You have no power over me. And it doesn't. It's a bit of magic, but it also has science backing it up. So I want to leave you now with all of this, with some of these skills that I've been learning, the affirmations. Next time we'll talk about gratitude. There's another one that's really big, hot in the scene. You hear about that a lot, using gratitudes, and I'm going to tell you, they work a treat. And they're again in the realm of priming your brain for abundance. So we'll talk about that. And I'm going to tell you also about how I managed to start writing a novel and do all the other things, and some of the skills that I was learning to help me balance. All right, sally forth now. Sally forth with some welly. Get out there. Go find some solitude. I am hereby challenging you to media deprivation. I also want you to start thinking about some positive affirmations. And if you don't want to say affirmation, just positive statements. Just think about something positive and start recognizing when you're using negative statements in your head. Start noticing when you have negative thoughts. That's all you have to do right now. Dr. Tara says do this for 3 months. Do this for as long as you can. Don't do anything about it. Just start to pull your attention inwards. Build your awareness. That is, after safety, the next step that we need to take in order to change. All right, guys, I love you. Take it. Take my love. I'm giving you oxytocin, okay? We've talked about this for a while. I'm giving it to you, so take it. Run with it. And if you like this podcast, please like, follow, share, subscribe, review. It really helps me out. And like I said, I really like to get on some guests soon, and I've got to attract them by showing that somebody's listening to this podcast. All right, have a good week. Be well. Love you lots. Bye.